Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto Vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
It was a silent night in the forests of Konoha. The village of Konoha was in absolute chaos, but the forests were at peace. The 5-year-old boy, rejected forever and treated like the QB for reasons he couldn't control, had disappeared. That night, the Sandaime was conducting his nightly inspection of the village through a crystal globe, an action also known as spying. When he saw Uzumaki Naruto standing in front of the Ishiraku ramen stand, he then decided to follow him for a while, just to make sure he got home safe and sound, when suddenly the boy turned and stared at him through the one-way invisible surveillance camera. Say again, that Sandai was baffled to me as to how it was possible, but what happened next was even more curious. The child disappeared. It disappeared from the camera screen and then disappeared. It was as if he vanished into thin air. The third wasted no time in calling an emergency meeting for all the Hounen in the village, which ended in disaster. The most intolerant and ignorant shinobi, who had lost their relatives during the Kyugi years, had called for a manhunt, and wanted to send the hunter Nin to exterminate the demon child once and for all. And as the number of Nin who had not lost to Ni at the hands of the Kyubi was incomparable, the Sandaime was outvoted in almost every respect. There was no need to remind them of the room's last request to hail the boy as a hero. No. They would never listen to him. In the end, he pressured Ambu to get him back instead of sending the hunter Nin, stating that Naruto was not an official shinobi and could not be hunted as such. Meanwhile, in the quiet forests surrounding Konoha, a blurred figure could be seen, making its way towards the northern border of the Fire Country at an incredible speed. This blurred figure was, in fact, the missing boy Uzumaki Naruto. But although the body belonged to him, its current occupant was quite the opposite. "Who are you? What do you want?" This brat was incredibly annoying, him and his damn childish voice with his damn childish innocence. In the future, the QB would learn to get attached to that damn childish voice with his damn childish innocence. But at that moment he was just annoyed. It's not enough that he managed to escape that hell in a way that will leave the village talking for weeks. Not to mention how hard it was to break the sense. Just to be able to take control of this body, nor how difficult it was to run on 2 feet. Human, how ridiculous it was to stand upright. Always wobbling, not enough speed, not enough support. "Who are you?" "Shut the fuck up, you stupid Gruno brat. I'm just your resident demon, sealed in your body by the idiot of Euro Cage." "Is there a demon in my body?" Yes, it was the sharpest katana in the closet, without a doubt. He resisted the urge to give the boy a few blows to the head, forgetting for a moment that it was impossible, since Naruto's mind was trapped in his current body, and in doing so, he would only hurt himself. "I am a Kirub." "What is a Kirub? What is a Kirub?" "You don't even know what a Kirubi is. Damn it. I knew I should have caused more havoc in the Leaf Village." "Huh. How do you sow chaos? What does it mean to sow chaos? What is sowing chaos? Oh my god." Listening to this kid was going to make him stupid. Suddenly, he felt his legs weakening, and the control over Naruto's body slipping away. "Looks like my control is over," the Kyumi thought. "Listen, kid," he thought quickly, "go north. Whatever you do, get out of the land of fire. The nearest ninja village is the hidden village of the arena. Go there." "Why is that? Why did we have to leave Konoha? Do you want to repeat an incident like today's?" Naruto made a face. Actually, it wasn't his fault. He simply asked a child if he wanted to play with him, and to his joy, the child said yes. Then his mother saw them by chance and immediately came up and dragged him away without looking at him twice. When the other boy protested, his mother gave him a sketch. Naruto would have felt better if the mother had given a sketch to him instead of that child. "No," he thought slowly, "I don't want to do it again. But that doesn't mean I want to leave Konoha. What a pity, ungainly, said the QB. Once you run away, you won't be able to come back. Your Okage probably already noticed your disappearance and probably already sent people to kill you. To kill? Yes, said the QB, thinking quickly suddenly. Grateful for Naruto's moderate capacity for knowledge. Have you ever heard of ninja hunters? They wear strange masks and kill those who flee. So if you want to live, go to the hidden arena. The older demon landed as carefully as possible on the forest floor with the lemon. Control I had. I'm done with you. Naruto felt a sudden surge as he joined his physical body again, but before he could even think about running, he fell to the ground. Her feet were aching, her legs were burning, and her hands were covered with multiple scars and bruises. Apparently, the QB had tried to run on all fours instead of two. His heart was beating fast, and, although he had not run anything until then, he felt the pain of a 5-year-old who has just run 100 miles. He coughed and vomited, but all his nausea came out dry, and he gasped with difficulty. He didn't want to move. She just wanted to lie down and Greek. Hey, kid, get up. I mentioned a term to you, didn't I? I know. Naruto snorted. Just give me a second. You don't have a second. I didn't do a perfect job covering our tracks. So get up and get going. We're almost there. Okay, Naruto thought, getting to his feet with difficulty. I'm leaving, he said as he limped through the forest. No, no, no. Not that way. Go to the right, to the right. Can't you tell right from left? No, the other right. Yes, the other right. Don't ask me what I'm talking about, stupid, stupid boy. Not once did he think to ask the QB why he was so desperate to get to the village of Sand and Sun, or the Sand. Not once. Sandai mooned at me through the lonely office window. The Ambu squadron had failed. They managed to track the boy to the border, but failed to capture him. He was simply moving too fast. Yandame, she thought sadly, I'm sorry. Attack Kakashi sighed as his squad members were returning home. They had been about to bring him back. They had seen the child. They saw Uzumaki Naruto running across an open plain that led to the Wind Country. Naruto looked back and saw them in full Ambu gear and masks. Just then, she saw such immense terror in the boy's eyes that she felt a twinge of regret, a feeling she hadn't felt in years. That look didn't belong on a child's face. It wasn't the look of someone scared by a ghost story or the expression of someone startled by something. The terror was pure, and that face still haunted him. But then, Naruto ran with renewed determination. He kept running, even after crossing the border. He was just really scared. Kakashi shook the image out of his mind, wishing it would disappear, knowing that by doing so, the image would be forever etched in his memories. Hey, Itachi, he shouted over his shoulder, go home. It's late. It had been his first mission as Ambu, and the prodigy of the Uchiha clan, Itachi, had failed. Dawn, replied Itachi. I'll be fine. Kakashi didn't say anything, but he threw a shuriken at Itachi. The other bowed his head effortlessly, and let it sink into the wall behind him. If you were normal right now, Kakashi said, you would have caught it and returned it to me. He turned to leave. Go home. Get some rest. Itachi stayed where he was for a while, but finally got up and went to the Uchiha area of the city. Sasuke probably wanted to play with him. He was punished after his mother caught him playing with the boy Kumi. He recalled how his mother dragged him out of school with a handprint on his right cheek, and how she very seriously told him never to get together with that boy again. He passed through the doors of the main house of the Uchiha, and was immediately greeted with a loud and happy Nissan. After all, Sasuke was very predictable. Naruto ran. He ran one step after another, towards the Wind Country, until his knees couldn't hold him anymore, and he collapsed. For a moment, he just sat there, while the wind swirled the sand around him. Suddenly, a sob burst from his chest, and burst out. Then another and another, each one faster than the last, until he buried his face in the sand, and cried. She cried because she had been afraid. There were really people with masks. The Kyuubi was right. When those people with masks arrived, she had to keep running while holding back the tears. Imagine a 5-year-old child who has to learn not to cry. After hearing the boy sobbing for a few minutes, the Kyuubi finally asked, "Hey, when are you going to stop crying, boy?" Unfortunately, the question only served to make the child cry even more. So the Kyuubi tried another tactic. "Could you start moving?" "Please," she said, swearing that someday the boy would pay for making her say that damn word. It worked a little bit. Naruto struggled to his feet, wiping away tears and hiccuping as he walked. He had been afraid. Naruto staggered through the desert for an infinite time. His speed had slowed down considerably since his chakra was depleted, and someone as young as him couldn't travel a great distance in such a short time without feeling the consequences. He walked until he lost track of time. I was very hungry, and my throat was parched. He, or rather the Kyurub, didn't even think about packing anything, which was incredibly stupid. But the Kyurub had insisted that if he took anything, it would harm him and slow him down. "I'm going to die here," he thought sadly. The Kyurub had been silent for a long time. Maybe he was dead or something. "I hope not. I want to live. I don't want to die now." He fell to his knees, the sand burning his skin. "I don't want to die now. I want to live." Strength and energy flowed out of his body like a river, and he collapsed onto the sand. "There are so many things I haven't done yet that I really want to do. I want to make a friend. I want to start a family. Please, God, I don't want to die yet. I want to live." The Kyuubi growled and paced around the damn cage like the wild animal he was. The seal had managed to close again, and he lost mental contact with the boy. Damn the seal. He roared furiously, struggling violently and uselessly against the cage door. "You wanted your son to be safe, but this is what will kill him. It's Dioka." The boy's temperature was rising rapidly under the heat of the desert sun, and he would not survive more than an hour. "Damn you, Yandame. Damn you." Baki was exploring the sand country every afternoon when he saw a figure lying on the sand. Assuming it was the corpse of an intruder or a bait to lure a shinobi from the arena like him, he cautiously approached. To his surprise, it was the body of a child. He looked for a pulse in the boy's neck and was even more surprised to find that he was alive. He quickly carried it on his shoulders and returned to the sand village. "It was hot where I was now. It was not as hot as in the desert, but it was pleasantly warm and cool at the same time." Naruto opened his eyes slowly. "Where am I?" It looked like a hospital room, and yet so cozy. The hospitals in Konoha were white, clean, and very hospitable. Wherever I was now, it looked like someone's room with medical devices. The quilt and blanket were red and had flowers. The walls were painted a warm brown that imitated wood, and there was barely a hint of white. "Are you awake?" He jumped up and looked at the one who was speaking. He was about 20 years old, blonde hair and warm brown eyes. He looked at her, expecting her to frown at him or glare at him, but she just smiled. "What's your name?" "Uzumaki Naruto." He didn't look like he hated it. "Where the hell would I be right now? Why did you bring the boy here if you didn't know who he was? He could have been a spy. Then it would all fall on you, Baki." Baki listened patiently as the Keisuke berated him for his carelessness. "But, fortunately for you, that's not the case. I guess you haven't found out yet." News, Kazakaja-sama. Our sources in Konoha have discovered that the Kyuubi's ship recently escaped. The Kyuubi boy ran away. "Don't you think this guy is the Kyuubi?" Baki asked. Kazakaja glared at him. "I know the Kyuubi is in that guy. Did you not see the marks of his whiskers? Those who have a demonic presence will have a revealing sign like that. Like Gaara and her eyes." "What will we do?" Baki asked. "What will we do?" He repeated Kazakaja. "We will keep the child, of course." Why did you think shinobi like Gaara were created? The hidden sand village now has 2 ships, and once both receive proper training, the sand village will be invincible. He talks about his own son as if he were a tool. At that moment, Niobe Ayumi, one of the great interrogators of the arena, left the room and closed the door. Fine. He says his name is Uzumaki Naruto. He's the one, Kazekage-sama, he said, bowing. Kazekage smiled. Or rather, he squinted his eyes with joy. What did I tell you, Baki? He asked as he made his way to Naruto's room. The arena will have two. Chapter 02. Growing up, Kazekage rubbed his chin thoughtfully as Naruto told his story as best he could, without using eloquent words. Apparently, it was Kyuubi who initiated the matter of the escape, and not the boy himself. But the Sand Village would benefit greatly in the future if an S-class demon lived within its walls. And what the boy didn't know wouldn't hurt him either. Naruto-kun, you've been a very bad boy, he said with that slow and deceptively kind fatherly manner of his. Huh. You ran away from your village, Kazekage continued. Your Hokage has to eliminate those who flee, it's not like that. Naruto tried to defend Sandaime. The old man had been kind to him all these years, and was the only person who didn't look at him with those eyes. But then he remembered those ninja hunters, and lost quite a lot of strength. What reason could he use to excuse Sandaime for sending them after him? Of course, everything Kazekage had just told Naruto was a complete fabrication. There was never any ninja hunter like the Kyuubi predicted, only Ambu. Blame it on luck, but Kazekage was just lucky that his story matched what the Kyuubi told Naruto. On the other hand, he was a master at manipulating the truth, guessing and manipulating people's minds. And the rather simple story of Naruto was not a great challenge. I'll tell you what, he said, as if he had just devised a masterly plan. You can stay here in the village and become one of our shinobi. What do you think? For how long? Naruto asked. How long? Repeated Kazekage, smiling under his cloth mask. For as long as you wish, Naruto-kun. Naruto followed the Kazekage down the street. The hidden village of the sand was so strange and so different from Konoha. The streets were deserted, and it was late in the morning. In Konoha, the streets were always full, no matter the time of day. If Naruto had had any observation skills, he would have noticed that the streets were empty for some reason. The place had been vacated in a hurry for some reason. Suddenly, he saw a person standing in the middle of the street. As he got closer, he realized that it was a boy, about the same age as him. She had red hair and eyes the color of seawater, with a kind of black makeup around. Kazekage barely looked at him, not stopping his step. It was just his imagination, or he walked a little faster when he was close to him. I wonder who it is, Naruto thought as he looked at the boy. Do you have the same eyes as me? This will be your room. It was a huge room. Well, maybe not that big, but compared to her tiny room in Konoha, it was quite big. At the moment, it was empty, except for a bed and a blanket. But soon it would be filled with many things detailing Naruto's growth over the years. Thank you, Naruto said, still amazed that someone would be so kind to him. Thank you very much. Kazekage nodded, and left the room without another word. As soon as he did, Naruto jumped into the room, and started spinning around with childish joy. The pain in my feet and hands was gone. A good night's sleep always suited him, and now it did not fail him. The pain of running away and being chased seemed to disappear from his mind. All he could think about was that he was away from those cold stares and safe from being killed by suddenly. He realized that two couples were watching him from the door. Two children, a girl and a boy, both with golden hair, and who looked a little older than him. Hello, he said cheerfully. To their delight, they were undeterred. The girl entered with a confidence that Naruto could never have and said, I am Tamar, and he is Kankuro. She threw her head back, looking at the boy who was a step behind her. Who are you? I am Uzumaki Naruto, he said cheerfully. Do you live here? Yes. I live in the room 3 doors down, and Kanken lives 2 doors down. Who lives in the next room? Naruto asked. The two exchanged a glance. Her name is Gahara. He's our younger brother. Stay away from him, whatever you do, Kanken warned. His voice went dead. Although he didn't understand why, the way Kankuro said it was as if Gaara was some kind of illness. All right, he nodded. Anyway, how old are you guys? The three of them got along wonderfully during Naruto's first afternoon in the Sand Village. That is, except for Kankin's obvious fetish with dolls. He insisted that they were not dolls, but puppets. And apart from that, Temari gave Naruto his first etiquette lesson. It all started when Naruto said his name. You don't usually add a suffix to the end of names. Naruto-kun. He asked. Why do people do that? He asked. To show respect. To show closeness. Has no one ever taught you that? No, Naruto started, and was immediately interrupted by the beginning of Temari's speech. To someone you show extreme respect, he adds, Sama. Add Kumi-san at the end of the names of people you are close to, but still respect. Add chan alone, or two people very close. Dono and an are not used as much anymore. Pay attention to how people talk. And learn from it. Understood? What is the difference between Kumi-san? Why don't we just use one? You heard a word of what I just said. Yes, I did, but you were too fast. What do you mean I was too fast? You're too fast. Oh yeah? They got along great. The funny thing about the hunting lodge was that everyone ate separately, unless they felt hungry at the same time as someone else. All of that seemed fine to Naruto. I used to eat alone anyway. But when he came down to dinner that night, he saw the boy from that morning having dinner. The redhead with black lines around the eyes. Hey, I didn't know you lived here, Naruto told him. What's your name? The boy looked surprised. Gahara. Is it Gahara? It doesn't seem that dangerous. Mom. Suddenly, he remembered an incident that occurred a little less than half a year ago. A teacher was telling the class that you shouldn't judge people by what they say, but only by what you know. But when one of the children pointed to Naruto and asked about him, the teacher said, "That's different," without even looking at him. There's something to eat around here. I'm a little hungry, Naruto said, hoping to start a conversation. Gaara stared at him for a second before finally saying, I think Yasamaru can do something. Who? Yasamaru? My guardian. He got out of the chair. I'll go get him. I'll come with you, Naruto said. Yasamaru looked over his shoulder as he was preparing dinner for Naruto. The two boys were sitting at the table chatting. Well, Naruto was the one doing the talking. Gaara, the less experienced conversationalist, would only nod here and there during each Naruto break. Part of him was glad that Gaara had finally found someone who wasn't afraid of him. However, another part still felt hatred towards him for having killed his sister. But seeing the hesitant smile on Gaara's face, the truth is that happiness trumps hatred. Without realizing it, 3 months passed. 3 happy months in which he spent time with the 3 brothers of the arena. Temari was glad to have someone other than Kankurm to talk to. Kankurm was glad to have someone else to fear and to talk to, and Gaara was just glad to be with someone who wasn't afraid of him. He was quite surprised to find out that they were all relatives and that they were the children of the Keisuke. And yet, for the 3 months, he never understood why Gaara was so feared by everyone. Of course, he wasn't the brightest one in the closet. And, once again, no one realized that Naruto also had a demon inside, because he was a happy child. And it was common belief among the ignorant that demon children used to be dark and sad. But after those 3 months, Kazekage decided it was time for Naruto to start his training to become a shinobi. And since he wasn't a normal kid like Temari and Kankurm, and didn't have an absolute defense like Gaara, he had to be tutored instead of going to school. And his tutor was a man named Baki. Naruto looked around. They were in the middle of the desert, it was noon, and the sun was high and falling on them. Just ducklings. Baki handed him a small jukebox with water. Run north until you find a flag. Then come back. Naruto arched an eyebrow. Aren't you supposed to teach history and stuff like that before you start fieldwork? If you want to know about history, go read a book. The worst thing after a dead shinobi is a fat one, Baki said bluntly. Once you have trained your body enough and are ready to learn about the chakra system, I will teach you what you need to know. If not, what you learn at school is pure garbage. Naruto muttered something, but ran north anyway while Baki sat on the sand to meditate. Why was I assigned as a babysitter? He thought. I hate brats. But then again, he hasn't seen the full potential of Naruto. Why is that? Snorted Naruto. Hell, took another puff and asked, am I doing this? I had run for about 5 minutes and I was already dead tired. Baki-sensei told him to run north, but what if he went off the track? What if I accidentally turned somewhere? What if there was no flag and Baki just wanted to get rid of it? Naruto shook the bottle. It was empty. He threw it towards a nearby moon, muttering harmless more childish curses in a low voice. Baki sighed. Maybe this kind of resistance training was too hard. The brat couldn't even make it halfway. But still, he needed to train his body to adapt to the lifestyle of the arena, and it wasn't going to be easy. After a whole week, all he did was run. Sure, it was getting easier and easier to cross the desert, and it took him less time, and Baki didn't have to rescue him again. But still, what was the point of it? On the other hand, Naruto was not the brightest of all. So today, after finishing the whole tour, Naruto said excitedly, Baki-sensei said that we would start something new tomorrow. Isn't that great? Amazing, Naruto-kun, Tamari said with her mouth full of sushi. That whole racetrack is a training ground for genie. If you can already run it, you've probably mastered the endurance of a genin. It's not cool. I don't understand why he gets a private sensei and we have to be put in school. Kanker mumbled as he tucked in a spoonful of whatever it was he was eating. It bore a particularly unpleasant resemblance to vomit. Well, you're too busy playing with all your dolls to concentrate on training, Tamari smiled. For the last time. They're puppets. Not dolls. Do it right. Yes, of course, Tamari replied. With a sudden fit of coughing, in which the words doll could be heard indistinctly between each cough. Naruto watched them as they argued non-stop. They seemed to get along very well. But what about Gaara? Why does everyone seem to hate him? Suddenly, the kettle started to ring, and that the water had finished boiling. As she cheerfully poured the water into the small instant pot, Tamari told her, one day I will force you to eat udon. Now that's rich. Ramen is better. The udon are just fat noodles, Naruto said, sticking his tongue out at her, a gesture she reciprocated. Hey Tamari, Naruto asked, suddenly thoughtful, why are they so afraid of Gaara? They both froze at the mere mention of his name. Don't tell anyone that it was us who told you this, Kankuro whispered, leaning over. But Gaara was introduced to the spirit of a tanuki demon when our mother was pregnant. Really? Naruto asked, and before he even thought about what might happen, he blurted out. Well, I have a sealed demon inside, too. There was silence. Don't joke, Naruto-kun, Tamari said, trying to laugh. No kidding, Naruto insisted. It's true. I have a QB in me. That's how I escaped the Leaf Village. Well, it wasn't me who escaped, but Naruto couldn't be a demon. She's happy. He's kind? Impossible. But he doesn't seem to be lying. Does anything matter? Naruto finally asked. Will they treat me differently now that they know I have a Kirib inside? They both really thought about it. They got to thinking with their 8- and 9-year-old minds for him. Find an honest answer. And they found that, honestly, they wouldn't treat him any differently. Sure, sometimes they would be distrustful, but in general, he was still the same child they knew and loved. See? Naruto asked, secretly relieved. Then his voice softened and took on a tone of sadness. The treatment they receive with Gaara is the same as they gave me when I was still living in the village of La Hoya. There was another silence. Then, unexpectedly, Tamari came up and gave her adopted little brother a little hug. We will never treat you like this, she said, and Kankuro nodded his head. The ramen was already cold. Chapter 03. The mission. The years passed quickly and peacefully. They graduated and became genin, starting with Tamari, and then Kanker. Gaara was automatically converted in genin when he turned 12, and Naruto passed an exam with Baki. Unlike the Leaf Village, the Sand Village didn't have teams of 3 genin, because there simply weren't enough Hounen to go around. Ever since the foolish Prime Minister of the Land of the Wind cut the funding for the shinobi, working to survive became an unnecessary task. The usual system was that each Hounen had a genin apprentice, and once he qualified for the Chunin exam, he was paired with 2 other genin and one of the 3 instructors. Hounen, usually the best, was chosen to lead the squad. The good thing was that each genin was strengthened thanks to the exclusive attention of his sensei. On the other hand, this significantly reduced teamwork. Of course, Kazekage was not going to stand idly by while his beloved Sand Village collapsed with the leaf hogging all his customers. Now he was even more grateful that Baki had brought the little demon to him 8 years ago. Having 2 demon vessels would be a great solution. Are we going to invade the Leaf Village? Tamari asked in disbelief. But why? Sand and Leaf are allies, aren't they? The blade has attracted the customers of the Sand Village ever since the Minister of the Wind Country signed that alliance, Baki growled. We must take back what is ours. But today Tamari started, and then it was interrupted. It was the idea of the hunt and the Village of Sound. And it was also his idea to send all 4 of them. That comment quickly caught the attention of all 4. Listen, this is an S-class mission. You must invade the Leaf Village at the next Chunin exam together with another Sound team. The 4 will be divided into 2 teams. The first team will attend with me as an instructor. The second team will take the exam with 2 other Chunin-level shinobi. His goal is to reach the final exam. Then, on the 3rd examination, the additional members of the second team will withdraw and regroup for the invasion. Understood? The 4 of them nodded. Now decide which of you 4 will be the one left on the team. There was a split-second pause. I will, Naruto said. No, I'll do it, Tamari said. No, Tamari-san, Naruto said quietly but firmly. I'm not making fun of your skills, but if you join the remaining team, there is no guarantee that you will pass. If I leave, there is almost no chance that you will fail. Baki looked at his student. Naruto had grown up in a peculiar way, and his relationship with the 3 brothers of the arena was exceptional. He got along very well with Tamar and Kankerm, which was to be expected, but the fact that he managed to get close to Gaara, and the fact that Gaara really respected Naruto made him very special. So the teams are determined, Baki said. Remember that. And Naruto, your classmates will see you the day before the exams when we go to the Leaf Village. Understood. He waited for everyone to nod. We're going to Konoha in 3 days. Start packing. Tamari polished her fan lovingly before putting it on her back. When he became a genin and decided to use the fan as a weapon, he did not imagine how heavy it would be, and therefore almost never used it. But a few years later, he had become part of her image, and she rarely went anywhere without him. Kankerman returned to his favorite puppet in bandages. He was told that Karasu would be a fundamental part of the plan. If everything went wrong, the pre-installed poisonous gas would allow them to escape immediately. Just as a precaution, of course. Personally, he didn't like using Karasu as much as other puppets. But of course, Karasu was the most powerful, and the one who could carry the most weapons. Gaara stood in the middle of the desert, with her hands outstretched and muttering between her teeth. The sand around him began to clump, to swirl and compact into the shape of a pumpkin. Once he was sure it was solid enough, he filled it with regular sand and tested it. It was terribly heavy. He had to admit it. Maybe a 2-meter pumpkin was too big. Something half that size would do just fine and would be much lighter too. Are you sure it's wise, Baki-sensei? Naruto asked his teacher. Register me as Uzumaki Naruto. Wouldn't it be better to give a fake name? It would be, Baki said. But Kazekage-sama said that the blade never registered you as missing, so, in his opinion, you were fair game. Be that as it may, he only seeks to cause them pain. Hunting and his sadism, Naruto thought dryly. You will never get tired of it. Out loud, he asked, do you think I'm ready for this? Baki looked at him seriously before finally saying, if we weren't planning an invasion along with this exam, I'm sure you would have become a chunin easily. Naruto smiled. Thank you, Baki-sensei. But what Baki said was not meant to praise Naruto. As some may not know, Baki has a hard time giving compliments, something Naruto has learned over the years. And he was also a stern foreman. When Naruto mastered Bunsen no Jutsu, Baki wanted him to learn Bunsen no Jutsu by reading, as he could not prove it by himself. And it took Naruto weeks to learn it, along with another technique, Goken no Jutsu, that sharpened the five senses. But learning multiple techniques at once had stoked Naruto's thirst for knowledge, until one day, shortly after becoming a genin, he simply read the scrolls from the hunting library. Thus, he learned even more techniques and only stopped when the hunt discovered him, and although he was not crazy or anything like that, he told Naruto not to approach that collection until he was older. Much older. Unlike the arena trio, Naruto did not have a particular way of fighting like Gaara's absolute defense. And he did not have a weapon that corresponded with an element like Tamari's fan, and he did not have a chakra control low good enough to master puped no jutsu like Kankuro. He had two distinct styles. The least used was when he faced the opponent in a fair fight. Then, normally, he would wait for the opponent to exhaust all his chakra, and then attack him with taijutsu, ninjutsu, or any technique he had in mind. But he almost never got into a fair fight, so he never used it. As a child, before he was expelled from the hunting library, he read a scroll about the most vulnerable and sensitive points of the human body and remembered everything. This led to his second and most widely used method of fighting. His second method was speed combined with the contents of that scroll. A quick attack that hit all the pressure points of the body and caused great pain to the enemy. He was fast, efficient, and always worked, unless the opponent was faster than Naruto himself. There were very few people faster than Naruto. The Kyuubi was a fundamental part of Naruto's upbringing. When he broke the seal, he left a crack big enough for both of them to communicate. The Kyuubi was his permanent companion and personal healer, so he too used to return from his missions seemingly unharmed. But the Kyuubi did not usually go out and used to be inactive, because if he wanted to talk, it caused stress to Naruto. Because the seal interfered with his natural functions. So they usually only talked if it was absolutely necessary. He learned that lesson 2 years ago. When Naruto turned 12, he felt a sudden desire to learn an invocation, but he didn't have an animal to make a contract with. The Kyuubi had offered to teach an invocation to him, and he had accepted. Which one was it? You may wonder. A fox, of course. It didn't take him long, thanks to the slutty entity inside of him. It had taken him 2 weeks to learn how to summon the most basic fox, and a month to learn how to summon the 1.801 meters with contracts, and wanted to teach someone in the future. The temporary paralysis in his legs was a negligible side effect. The moon was big and bright tonight. Usually the full moon is considered a sign of fortune, but if it happens the night before, it was a great trip. It could also be a bad omen. Naruto was on the roof of a random building with a great place to watch the night, pondering this thought, when he heard the presence of someone appearing behind him. You shouldn't do that, he said, without turning around. One day you're going to scare someone so much that they'll pee on themselves. Finally, he looked at his visitor, Gaara. Gaara didn't say anything, but sat down next to the blonde. They didn't say anything. That's what their connection was made up of. Long silences, but comfortable. Do you agree with this mission? Naruto asked, finally breaking the silence. Shukaku and all. ... Really? Because I don't think I would do well if I was accepted on a mission just because of the Kyuubi. Gaara closed his eyes. The wrinkles caused by insomnia were becoming more defined every day and were undermining his sanity. Naruto saw it and knew it. I was also afraid that this mission was the one that would shatter what was left of that precious sanity. What I didn't know was that he was also one of the few people who kept it intact. I'll be fine. There was another long, comfortable silence. Finally, Naruto got up and said, I better get back. Tamari will probably kill me if I don't get some rest before the big day. Then, Gaara nodded, making no effort to turn around and say goodbye to Naruto's walking away back. They were both demons and they understood each other. That was enough. Naruto quietly slipped into the living room and was surprised to find that Tamar and Kankuro were still awake. What are they doing awake? He asked, surprised. Then he smiled. Excited. They nodded. This is not an easy mission, Naruto, Tamari said. This could be the one that destroys or builds the sand village. And everything falls on us. She shuddered with anticipation. I'm nervous. Don't do it, Naruto said. You should talk, Kankuro replied. You're not the one who's on the team with Gaara. In fact, why don't you exchange with me? If that doesn't work, I'm sure you could swap with Gaara. That would be the best. No, Naruto said. Those other two genin will probably die if they are on Gaara's team. Believe me. What we have right now is the best. In addition, we have already sent our registrations. So it's a little late. He laughed and went up to the room. Come on, both of you. Let's not worry, and let's go get some sleep. We have to go to the Leaf tomorrow, and we need energy. Tamari stared at him. What about you, Naruto? How do you feel about returning to the Leaf Village after so long? Naruto paused for a half step. He was too young to remember anything, he said. But I don't feel anything about it, and I don't have anything against it. That's all. He turned around. No. He couldn't fall asleep. He sat up and looked out the window at the full moon. Hey, Baka Kitsune. Are you there? He felt a slight agitation in his mind. Then he received an answer. What is this? The Kyumi scoffed. Don't you have a secret mission tomorrow? Get some sleep, you stupid fucking brat. Naruto smiled. He was as kind as ever. No, I can't sleep. You're talking right now, you won't be in good health for the exam. And I want to get some sleep too. So go away. We have a whole day to rest in Konoha before the test. Besides, how long have you been sleeping? From now on. Oh, what the hell? What do you want, Kyuzo? You're gonna help me during the exams, right? With the healing and all that. Is that why you woke me up? Have I ever not cured you? Have faith, little human. Naruto was about to laugh when suddenly his left arm ignited painfully. See, what do I tell you? You talk for no reason, and you get hurt. Now go to sleep, you stupid girl. Naruto smiled to himself and rubbed his left hand as the bond broke. The Kirubino proved it, but he cared. Actually, more than 10 genin teams were going to Konoha. But as only 2 teams were expected to make it to the final exam, only they were informed of the mission. Each team headed south, towards Konoha, on foot separately. Naruto's team was composed of 2 ordinary sand ninjas. One, Kurosaki Umatsu, had half of his face covered with a cloth. The other, Nubu Wataru, had his face bandaged up, so only a pair of sunglasses were visible. They were both years older than he was, and they were pulling out about 2 heads. Upon entering the gates, they received their passports and were invited to walk around the village. Most of the genin in the arena accepted the offer. The 3 were no exception. Gaara had apologized and gone to the hotel, leaving the rest to explore, in Naruto's case, re-explore, the village of the Leaf. Tamar and Kankuro headed to the barbecue restaurant, and Naruto, with nothing better to do, accompanied them. After all, it had been a whole day, and I was hungry. Team 10 was enjoying their barbecue happily and without incident until the cafe received visitors. Foreign visitors. There was a girl with reddish blonde hair, wearing a purple dress, and a fan fastened behind her back. There was a boy dressed in black, with his face painted purple, who was carrying something that looked extremely heavy. Then there was a blonde, blue-eyed boy, a few years younger than the first two. His forehead protectors, although located somewhere other than his forehead, confirmed that they were from the Sand Village. Go, assume, Shikamaru said quietly. It is not usually forbidden for Sandmen to go to allied villages, even if they are allies. Asuma remembers now why she took them to a barbecue, despite the fact that Chuji Jacken doubled her account. True, but these genin are here for the Chunin exam. For which I recommended you. What? Hino exclaimed as he took a particularly large piece of meat. You recommended us for the exam. Are you sure we're ready? Sasuke's team will be there. Oh, then we're definitely ready, Hino said, suddenly full of joviality. If you mention Sasuke, the pot goes out of him, Shikamaru thought bitterly. Women are so difficult. That night, as he lay in bed, Naruto thought carefully about this test. So far, the 6 of them had been told everything Baki knew about the exams. The first test would be information gathering. The second, survival, and the third, a real tournament. According to the plan, Kurosaki and Nobu would withdraw from the third exam and reunite with the other arena ninjas. Everyone had to reach at least the final of the third exam. There was no need to notify the other teams of the arena unless they arrived too. They were at least at the end. But since that possibility was unlikely, probably nothing needed to be done. He had also been told that all the rookie genin from Konoha would be attending this year. And if he didn't miss the calculation, they would be the people he had gone to school with during that short year. Would you recognize any of them? Naruto raised his left hand in the moonlight. For some reason, talking to Kyuubi the night before had shattered his hand. It usually only took a night to heal, and it still hurt. And I needed to be in top shape for the next exam. He rolled over, intending to fall asleep. When all this is over, he promised himself, I will start practicing some healing or numbing jutsu. Tamari was about to wake Naruto up when she heard a disgusting smudge coming from behind the door. He opened it and saw what appeared to be the crushed remains of a flower pot on the ground. Have you regained full health? He asked. Yes, he said, shaking the bits of hardened clay from his hands. Fine. Come on. Chapter 04. The first test. While Naruto, Kurosaki, and Nobu were on their way to the third floor to register, they passed by the classroom on the second floor, where a group of leaf genin were asking to be let in. Don't they know how to count floors? Naruto thought, without even looking at them twice as he passed. This is only the second floor. Learn to use the stairs next time, how stupid. As they were heading to the classroom to wait, Kurosaki said, Naruto-san, we will follow any order you need to be carried out. Everything we do will be under your orders. Naruto nodded and looked at her. Her? Yes, on closer inspection, Kurosaki was a girl. What a shame for him. Naruto looked at Nobu. He was definitely a boy. The clock was ticking minute by minute. And the instructor still didn't show up. The sound team had already put on an awesome show with the Leaf Y rookies. Shut up, you useless bastards. Well, it's about time. Thanks for waiting. I'm Morino Iviki, the examiner of the first test of the Chunin selection exam. He then berated the Sound Village team for openly attacking to other shinobi, to which the Sound team had a rather weak response. And are we allied with them? Naruto looked around. There was a dark-haired, white-eyed girl sitting next to him, and a brown-haired boy with an eye patch sitting next to his other one. Side. Information gathering, huh? Baki-sensei. Naruto thought. Excellent track. He formed a couple of seals and hissed a Goken no Jutsu. Immediately, he felt his 5 senses drastically intensify. His eyesight widened, his hearing sharpened, his nose picked up all the aromas in the air. His tongue felt the taste of the sushi he had eaten that morning, and his hands felt every little notch and imperfection of the wood. And Nata, who was actually sitting next to him, felt a strange sensation. He looked at the boy next to him and gasped silently. He was on fire. I had so much chakra in use it was outrageous. Who is he? He thought, feeling afraid for the second time that day. Naruto looked around. This method did not consume much chakra, but it exhausted his body. I needed to find someone and start copying fast. He finally saw something. Someone with a goatee and the bulge of a Chunin vest under the t-shirt. Bingo! He started copying the words from his page as fast as possible and finished in a few minutes. When he finished, he immediately deactivated the Goken no Jutsu and laid his head down to rest. Goken no Jutsu was the perfect skill for this. After all, it can only be used on espionage missions, he thought. If you were to use it in a real fight, you would be much more vulnerable and susceptible to injury. He forced himself to lift his head. How are the others doing? Gaara was using Shukaku's third eye. Fine. He caught Temer's gaze and pointed towards the ceiling, where there were 4 mirrors. Kankurm had already returned from the bathroom. He looked at his 2 companions. They both nodded affirmatively. Fine. Now you only need the last question to pass the first exam. Now, he thought, just for fun, while the Goken no Jutsu lasts, let's take a look at what the others are doing. He looked at the girl next to him and was startled. She had veins around her eyes and was imitating the same boy she used to cheat on. Smart girl, but with weird eyes. He remembered a scroll he had read about the leaf's lineage. White eyes, pale skin, and the familiar symbol is a cloud. It's probably a yuga. Interesting. He looked at the sound system. They were cheating by listening to the sounds of the pencil. They are not fools after all. He closed his eyes and heard a faint barking. Barking. I didn't know they allowed animals here, he thought. The faint crackling of the mirrors above him made Naruto smile. I don't need the Goken no Jutsu for this, he thought. Morino and Vicky watched the group of students. Some 32 teams had already been eliminated. But of all of them, it was evident that the most confident were the 2 from the arena and the sound team. They were strangely calm. Very strange, indeed. He looked at the clock. There were 15 minutes left. Okay, he said out loud. Now we'll start with the 10th question. The rules for this question are that you have to decide whether you want to ask it or not, he said. And Vicky, if you decide not to do it, your points are reduced to 0 and you fail along with your classmates. And if you decide to take it and do not manage to answer it, he continued above the wave of protests. Then you will lose the privilege of taking the Chunin exam forever. Naruto glared at the examiner. This man was a real master at manipulating minds. If he really took this test, hoping to become Chunin, he would be terrified as well. But since that wasn't the case, all that was left for him was to hang in there and hope for the best. He didn't care if he ever became Chunin. For others, however, it was a slap in the face. I can't stand it. The man who was sitting next to Naruto stood up. Number 50, suspend. Number 130, number 111, also suspended. Then, as if a wave had hit the room, several began to leave the exam voluntarily. Eventually, only 21 of the original 67 teams remained. When it seemed that no one else was giving up, and Vicky finally said, "And to the rest of you who are left," they held their breath in anticipation. I congratulate you on having passed the first exam. Wait, what do you mean, we've already passed? A girl with pink hair and green eyes asked. And the 10th question. There was never such a thing, Iviki said, smiling, completely transforming into another person. Or you could say that those decisions were the issue. So what were the first 9 questions for? A voice that Naruto recognized as Tamari's asked. They didn't make sense then. No, those first 9 questions served their purpose. To test your ability to gather information. That purpose. First, as the rules explained, success in this test depends on the good performance of the entire team. This puts pressure on each member not to ruin the life of their colleagues. But since the questions weren't the kind that a simple Genin could answer, I'm sure most came to the conclusion that in order to earn points, I'll have to cheat. Basically, the premise of this test is cheating. As the target of the traps, we had about 2 Chunins who knew all the answers in the audience to help them. Saying that, the two Chunins greeted everyone. One of them was the man with the goatee that Naruto and the girl next to him had cheated on. But those who cheat badly, Ibiki continued, taking off his itate. Fail, of course. What his itate revealed was a head full of burns, scars, and screw holes. If the enemy or a third party detects you, Ibiki said, there will be no guarantee that the information is correct. I want you to remember this. Important information can be a powerful weapon for you and your village. That's why we made you collect information by cheating. This clearly distinguished those who had the right skills from those who did not. But I don't understand the purpose of the 10th question, Tamari insisted. But the 10th question is the purpose of the test. How about those two options? Let's say they become Chunin. His mission is to steal an important document. They don't know the amount of ninjas, abilities, etc. Do they accept it or not? The decision to accept the mission is what will separate the Genin from the Chunin. Do you understand? After receiving some hesitant nods, and Vicky said, so, knowing that, I wish you luck in the future. Most of them were about to breathe a sigh of relief when, suddenly, the window broke and a figure came rolling in, nailing a crib and into the ceiling. Done, and unrolling a flag that said, the second examiner, Mitsura's Yanko. I am the examiner of the second exam, Mitsura's Yanko. Come on. He raised his fists. Silence. What a lack of tact, Ibiki thought. She behaves just like Tamari when she's drunk, Naruto and Kankurama thought at the same time. Tamari sneezed. 63. You let 21 teams through, Ibiki. Anko growled. This time, the test was too easy. Anyway, everything's fine. I will have them at least in the second test. He turned his gaze to the Genin, who suddenly looked like a snake, a cobra, with the hood unfurled, ready to attack. Ah, I'm getting excited, he said. I'll explain it to you when we change places. Follow me. They arrived in front of a metal wire gate. Beyond the gate was a thick forest, whose trees had trunks 5 times thicker than all of them together and even wider. Welcome to the state for the second test, practice Arena 44, Anko said. Also known as Akagahara, the Forest of Death. Chapter 05. Akagahara. The forest stretched beyond what the eye could see. It was dark, creepy, and looked like something out of one of those horror movies that Kankurama was inspired by for his dolls. You will soon find out why this is called the Forest of Death, Anko said, with eyes that were like a snake's again. Now, before we start the second test, there's something I need to hand out. He pulled a bundle of papers out of his trench coat. They must sign these agreement forms, he said. There will be death in this one, and if one of you dies, his death will not fall on me. Silence. Anyway, he continued, I'm going to explain the second exam to you, and then you can sign the agreement. Then, each team will be able to register in that booth. He pointed with his hand back. This test is for survival. He took out 2 scrolls, one black with the earth kanji, and one white with the sky kanji. They will participate in a scroll battle without commitment. They will fight for these 2. There are 21 teams here. That means there will be an extra scroll, heaven or earth. To pass the test, they must reach the tower with both scrolls. There is a time limit. This test will last exactly 120 hours. They are alone, he said above the protesting voices. The forest is full of food. Just be careful with the voice beasts. Of men, poisonous insects, and poisonous plants. He then explained to them some of the dangers of the forest and what would eventually become some of their worries. Now I will explain to you what will disqualify you, he said, his face still full of joy, as if it were a hot one. Summer day, and someone will have just delivered an ice cream. First, those who do not reach the tower with both scrolls within the time limit. Secondly, this is a team test. Those who lose companions or whose companions die will be disqualified. There is no turning back. Once they sign the agreement, they will stay in the forest for 5 days. Finally, you will not be able to look inside the scrolls until you are in the tower. The consequences of taking a look will fall on those who are stupid enough to ignore it. Once you exchange your forms for a scroll, choose a door and prepare for the start of the exam, Anko said. Then he quickly added the following words. A word of advice. Don't die. Naruto sat on a rock and watched the teams while Kurosaki exchanged the scrolls. Of the remaining 21 teams there were, of course, his, Gaara's, and the Sound one. There were 2 teams from the grass, 3 from the rain, the 1 from Kabuto, and the rest were shinobi from the leaf. Kurosaki was back. We have a scroll of 10, he told Elianubu as they made their way to gate 23. Which team will we go to, Naruto-san? Go after a leaf team, Naruto whispered. There are too many of them. They're like insects. What do you think, Nubu? Full stop, full stop. Are there no objections? Fine. Let's get leaf. To begin. Once the door opened, the 3 of them immediately entered. Where do we look first? Naruto thought. I wonder, would Garasen have any problems? Kurosaki asked. The only ones we have to worry about are us and that Sound team, Naruto said. I don't trust them. We should go check on them. First, let's get a scroll. Then we'll see what happens, Naruto said, gesturing with his head towards a cave in the distance. As he entered, he nailed a cradle and on the wall. I'll meet you here in an hour. Try to get a scroll. I don't care if it's from Earth or Heaven. The more we get, the better. But don't challenge anyone unless you are sure you can win and don't get hurt by carelessness. Understood? His 2 companions nodded. All right. 1 hour. I'll keep the scroll. Go away. Naruto headed north, east of the tower. Suddenly, he stopped. I know you're there. Get out of here, he said. The 3-leaved genin crawled out from under a bush. In fact, they were very familiar to him. He recognized them as the 3 he had seen at the barbecue. Ma said the one with the black hair pulled back in a high ponytail. Let's see what scrolls we have before we start fighting. If we have the same, there is no need to. Forget it, Naruto interrupted in disgust, turning his back on them. Your scroll is not worth it if you are not willing to fight for it. As he was leaving, he heard the girl with long blonde hair say, Damn. That's the second person who doesn't want our scroll. Kurosaki ran through the forest and suddenly stopped. There was a rain crew there. He knew he should attack Leadman, but still, he could never resist an easy death. He closed his eyes and slowly began to wrap Team Rain in his genjutsu. He formed some seals and whispered a gentle way Kuro and Kari. All that was heard then was the sound of blood soaking the tree trunks as 3 people lost their lives. Meanwhile, Nubu was returning to the cave. Surprisingly, in the last hour, he had only come across wild beasts. No team. What a pity. I really wanted to try his technique. Wait. There was already a team. It was from the leaf. Excellent. He raised his arms. The bandages on his hand began to unroll, revealing empty air beneath them. Naruto wasn't so wrong when he said that Nobu looked like the Invisible Man. The bandages began to slip after each of them. Then, without warning, they wrapped themselves around their necks and gave a sharp jerk. One less team. Naruto looked at the sun. It had already been an hour. I should be going back to the cave. But I didn't want to be the only one who came back without a scroll. He continued in leaps and bounds, looking for a team, any team, when, what was this? It was a group. A very large group. 3 sets, no, 4-leaf, and a sound system. I knew we couldn't trust them, he thought cautiously. But a power emanated from that small clearing. He was a boy dressed in blue, and his body was covered with marks. Naruto was startled. I knew those marks. I had seen them on the henchmen of the man who pushed Keisukai's idea of a leaf invasion. The name to that man, Orochimaru. Sasuke looked at his body. Power, tremendous power, overflowed his chakra system. And it felt incredibly good. He twisted Zeku's arm again and gave him a kick that sent him flying into a tree. Who's next? He thought. Who will I destroy now? He could now perceive the different chakras of those around him. There was the weak one of Sakura, the unconscious one of Aku, and the strong one to the monster Oyuga. But no, there was someone above him whose chakra was even stronger than the Yuga's. He looked up. There was an arena ninja staring at him. He smiled maliciously. "You, up there," he shouted. "Come down." Sakura and the other two Leaf teams looked up and saw nothing. But when they looked down, they saw that he had landed easily. That's when Shikamaru recognized him as the barbecue guy. "What's your name?" Sasuke asked, feeling particularly confident. This power made him feel that he could do things that he had never done before and go to unknown places. The boy stared at him and then shook his head, almost sadly. "You have to be incredibly stupid if you think I'm going to tell you just because you asked." Sasuke smiled crazily. "Then maybe I'll make you say it." The outcome of the match would have been very interesting. Too bad a girl with pink hair interrupted him. He hugged Sasuke and begged him not to fight. "Don't do it." To her eternal disappointment, the black-haired boy that girl called Sasuke heard her. "Damn," Naruto thought as Sasuke sat down heavily. "I wanted a pea and parchment." He turned his gaze back to the girl. "That was not very prudent," he said acrimoniously. "I could attack, and you would be responsible for any injuries I might have." He sighed again as he saw the girl's eyes getting bigger. Too bad he's not that kind of person. At that moment, his two companions landed on their knees next to him. "Huh? What are you doing here?" Naruto asked. "I thought I told you to meet me in the cave." "You're very late, Naruto-san," Kurosaki said with his head down. "Well, we're done here. Let's go." With that said, the three sand mines disappeared. Sasuke Uchiha, thought Neji. A worthy opponent. Then he remembered that blonde ninja from the sand. It's a pity I didn't get to see his skills. That would have been very interesting. Neji looked at his partner, Tenten, and a very injured and exhausted Lee. "Are you ready?" He nodded. "Let's go." Shikamaru, Hino, and Chuji walked away from Claro. "That was really weird," he babbled, "and no. And that guy in the arena. Imagine him thinking he can handle Sasuke-kun." "That's not the really weird thing," Shikamaru thought. "It seems strange to me that his companions are not the two people we saw with him at the barbecue. It seems strange to me that his comrades do not act like his comrades, but like his soldiers. But if you stop talking about Sasuke, I'd probably beat the crap out of you. Women. What a bummer." "Sasuke-kun, are you okay?" Sakura asked in concern. "Yes," Jade said. "How's Aku doing?" "I'm right behind you," the girly guy said. He looked tired and a little exhausted, but otherwise he was fine. "No, Sakura," Sasuke said. "What was the name of that blonde that the girl in the arena called?" "One, I think it was Naruto." "Naruto," Sasuke thought. Out loud, he said. "Does that name ring a bell?" Sakura blinked. "No, really," he said truthfully. "Why is that?" "It's nothing," Sasuke said. "But I could have sworn I'd heard Naruto's name before." "What did they get?" "We have 2 scrolls of the earth and our sky," Kurosaki reported. Interestingly, Naruto was the only one who did not receive a scroll. Then, as if reading his mind, he said, "I was going to get a scroll. Really? But I got distracted." He took the misplaced scroll from the earth. "And since our little nin friends from the sound seem to have lost theirs," he said, "maybe we should give them this." He stood up. "Come on." Dosu was tending to his teammates' wounds when he heard a voice saying, "I guess you're not that good, are you?" He turned around. Who could have slipped away without him noticing? He saw his visitors and sighed with relief. The arena team that had provided him with a hasty escape. The blindfolded nin with sunglasses threw something at him, and he caught it. A scroll of the earth. "Another chance," the blonde said before turning to leave. "Don't ruin it, please." "And now what do we do?" Kurosaki asked. "Are we going to the tower?" Didn't that instructor which say we were supposed to be in the woods for 120 hours? The tower is in the forest. It's true. I don't see why not. What do you think, Newbausen? Full stop, full stop. Are you still not talking? Full stop, full stop. There are no objections then. Let's go to the tower. The tower was dark and gloomy. It seemed like it had been years since anyone had swept it. That's what he thought, and he kills when he enters. Of course, his team didn't care much about cleanliness as long as they passed. Well, that's it from our side, Kiva said, dropping to the dusty floor. Now we just have to wait, Akamaru. Mom. Akamaru. The dog was sunk into his hood and was moaning slightly. What's the matter? He asked. A very strong guy is coming, Akamaru barked. It has the same air as the one in the arena. Is she strong? Kiva asked. Maybe apostrophe point. What do you mean by maybe? I can't tell if it's strong or not. Kiva told his colleagues. Akamaru says there's a guy coming who gives off the same air as that creepy guy in the arena. Shino and Mata were startled. The image of the blood raining down on them was hard to forget, and now a guy with the same air was coming. They heard footsteps and saw the other team from the arena. And Mata recognized the blonde as the one who was sitting next to him during the first exam. The three of them passed by without looking at them. Once they were out of earshot, Kiva whispered to Akamaru. That team doesn't look that strong. What are you talking about? Akamaru responded with a bark. That guy has more power than the other guy. What? Did your nose die or something? What was that? Do you feel a demon? Is he that strong? I'm sure your nose must have run off or something. That's lucky, Naruto said. We passed in 6 hours. I didn't expect the rain team to stop us for so long, but oh well. They have already met with Kami-sama. And now what do we do? Kazeno-sensei told us that we would stay here until the last day, Kurosaki said. Stay here. It's worse than my room, and that's saying a lot. Kurosaki hid a half-smile behind his mask. Naruto didn't act like he had a demonic presence. He was funny. Naruto sat down on the floor after hesitating for a moment and took out a water bottle from his bag. He wet his finger and traced a line of liquid on each of the scars he had made in the forest, being careful to wet only the area of cut skin. Then, before her Inubu, the scars began to smoke and seal. After a few moments, all the wounds he had received in the forest had disappeared. And it seemed as if he had just come from a walk in the park, ready to rest, an order that his temporary companions immediately accepted. They had reached the third exam. Now his mission was about to be completed. Chapter 06. The third test. The Sandaime Okage-sama had not changed in all those years. He was still the same old man from 8 years ago and was the only face Naruto recognized in the crowd of Hounen instructors. Apart from Baki-sensei, Kazeno-sensei, and Orochimaru. Of the original 21 teams, only 8 passed. Most of them were also Genin Leaf rookies. Listen carefully, Anko said. Okage-sama will now explain the third test. The Sandaime then explained the reason for the Chunin exam. He explained that it was a substitute for wars between countries. It's not like that, Naruto thought. A war is coming, Sandaime Okage-sama. Too bad I have no idea. When Sandaime finished his speech, and just as he was about to start with the rules for the third exam, a Jounin appeared in a cloud of smoke and asked to be the one to explain the third exam. I'm Jekuiate, he said as soon as he was given permission. Before the third exam, there is something I would like you to do. Take part in a preliminary test. What's wrong with that guy? His sick face, dark circles, constant cough, and a slight blue tone on his face indicated that he was suffering from some chronic illness. There are a few people left, he said. The fights could get too long, and we have little time. So, if someone does not want to take the exam, please let them take it. We started the preliminaries immediately. What? Right now? Asked the dog boy. Yes. Right now? Naruto nodded to his 2 teammates. We are leaving, they said, raising their hands. It's Kurosaki and Nobu from the arena, right? He coughed at Yate. You can leave now. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes. This was simply too unusual. Those two sand ninjas were leaving, even though they seemed to be in perfect condition. That blonde kid, it was Naruto, he was acting too calm. Two of his companions were leaving, and he didn't seem to mind. What kind of shinobi creates the sand village that can be so heartless? Kabuto was the next and last to forego the exam. It was to be expected. After all, he had already voluntarily resigned 6 times. One more wouldn't matter. Hey, there won't be any more withdrawals, will there? He asked Yate. Since there are an odd number of people here, we will have 10 matches, and the one that will automatically advance to the final. There are no rules. The fight will end only when someone dies, gets knocked out, or surrenders. The electronic scoreboard will be the one that decides your opponent. Now, can everyone stand down? The first match will start in 5 minutes. Hey, you 3 made it through without any problems, Naruto said, heading towards the ladder on the right, along with the other non-Leaf Jennings. No, thanks to you, replied Kankerman joke. Then he lowered his voice. Everything is going according to plan. Yes. Just be careful in your fights, all of you. Suddenly, the scoreboard came to life, and several names appeared before deciding on 2. Aku and Akamichi Chuji. Please, come closer. The former Miss Nin returned to the ground. His 2 companions had to convince him by force, and he only came down voluntarily after the promise of a free barbecue. Catch him, Chuji. Fat old man. Hearing those words from Hino, Chuji's eyes lit up. I'm not fat. I only have big bones, he shouted angrily, silently vowing to kill Hino as soon as he finished with the effeminate-looking guy in front of him. Ninpu. Vaika no Jutsu. Multi-size technique. He screamed, inflating himself into a human balloon. He put his legs, arms and head into the clothes like a turtle and its shell, and started rolling. Useless, Sakura thought. With that speed you won't be able to get close to Akuzan. His speed is even more impressive than Sasuke-kun's. Sure enough, Aku just had to dodge the rolling meatball. And if he was ever cornered, he would just jump up, step on Chuji, and escape to the other side of the room. He hadn't even had a chance to use his needles. Shikamaru slapped his forehead. This match required a lot of intelligence to win, and Choji's lack of intelligence would be what would cost him the match. Hey, I'm gonna get dizzy. Chuji muttered incoherently, swaying back and forth before falling to the ground. Aku didn't even get a chance to use his acupuncture needles on Bon. 1. Akamichi Chuji can't fight. Winner, Aku. Phew, Ino said, bringing his hand to his face. Chuji, you were so close. At least he didn't get hurt, Shikamaru said as Asuma carried Chuji up the stairs. He fell asleep from the dizziness. Oh shit. His opponent didn't even try. Aku, Naruto thought. His clothes are strange. It's not from the leaf. It looks like something the Mist Shinobi used that time. I wonder. Next game, Akato Yoro and Yuganei. Please, come down. The next 2 contenders faced off. Hey, you can start. They immediately launched, Neji with his Yakugan activated, and Yoro, and with outstretched hands. Neji managed to land a blow on him before Yoro and grabbed his wrists. Then, Neji felt the strange sensation that his opponent was draining his chakra. What? He managed to separate himself from Yoroi, who seemed extremely pleased with himself. Can it absorb chakra? Neji thought, rubbing his wrist gently. Well, then he lunged forward, intending another round of close contact. Yoroi, no matter how hard she tried, couldn't get close enough to hold him, so she settled for exchanging blows. The problem was that Yoroi knew that Neji's blows hurt him much more than his own hurt him. Finally, he saw an opportunity. Neji had finally left his head unprotected, a serious mistake. He immediately tried to grab Neji's forehead. As soon as his hand touched the headband, he said confidently, "You are mine." He waited for a moment, but he didn't feel any surge of power. He looked down, and his hands were still around Neji's forehead. Why didn't he feel any power? Why is that? I have locked the tenketsu in your hand, Neji said from below. You cannot release or absorb chakra. What? And now, Meiji said, you will lose this match, just as it was planned from the beginning. Without his ability to drain chakra, Yoroi was just another shinobi. And since he was at a disadvantage against the Yuga genie, it's easy to guess how the encounter will end. Winner, Neji, Ayat said, making a quick gesture to the nin's doctors. The Yuga had shown no mercy whatsoever. He attacked the internal organs with precision and did not hold back, not for an instant. Yoroi would not be able to use her arms and legs for a long time. Yuga Neji. The Yuga clan is the oldest and noblest clan in Konoha. That's what the hunting scrolls say, Naruto said. They are also a nuisance on the battlefield, unless you fight them. Yuga, Neji. Next to him, Gaara let out a sardonic giggle. Another opponent worth facing. Naruto looked surprised. Then, she smiled in the same scary way as Gaara. Yes. The scoreboard came back to life and started showing names again, one by one. Finally, it stayed in two. Gaara of the Sand and Abumi Zeku of the Sound. How boring, Naruto thought. This match is already decided before it starts. Zeku gritted his teeth. I had heard about Gaara. Orochimaru-sama had told her not to get in his way. But I had also told him to get to the third exam at any cost. She lowered her gaze to his arm. He was still hurt from when that bastard Sasuke dislocated it. Damn, he thought. This is terrible. He raised his healthy arm and threw a gust of air towards the moody Gaara. His gust didn't make an impact. The sand completely deflected her. Is that all? Gaara asked apathetically. What a pity. The sand that protected from Gaara suddenly began to spiral upward towards Zeku, traveling on the radio waves. Zeku quickly stopped the gusts of wind, but the sand fell to the ground and began to advance towards him. He jumped back several meters until the arena finally retracted, orbiting once again around his opponent in a protective manner. Zeku muttered unpublishable words under his breath. This guy was probably better at hand-to-hand combat than long distance. Take this, he shouted, raising both hands and concentrating. His power to the maximum. Gaara was really surprised by the strength of the waves. They forced him to get up and smashed him against the wall, and would have caused him considerable damage if he had not had his pumpkin. He acted as a shock absorber and cushioned the impact while Gaara concentrated on sending a trail of sand that went up Zeku's legs and plugged the two holes in his hand at just the right moment. Zeku, concentrating on the airstrikes, did not notice the sand. But once he stopped his attack, he did sense her. However, before he could react, the sand broke through his arms and got stuck. He became paralyzed. The sensation of sand creeping deeper up his arms paralyzed him. Stop, he said in a slightly shaky voice. Stop. I give up. He fell to his knees as the sand slowly began to fall away from his arms, and there he proclaimed Gaara the victor to you. I didn't even do anything, Gaara thought scornfully, bending down to pick up her cork, as the last drop of sand returned to the pumpkin. What a coward. Welcome back, Gaara, Tamari said as her younger brother teleported to her side. He nodded slightly before returning to the arena. I'm next, I'm next, I'm next. He prayed to her out loud. It follows, the next one. Gay prayed out loud. They finally decided on two names. Aruno Sakura versus Nara Shikamaru. Ake. Shikamaru? He shouted, and not from the stands. Let her fly with your 16-hit combo. Stupid, thought Shikamaru, annoyed. I don't even have a 16-hit combo. He looked. The girl with the pink hair. Weren't she very good friends, and weren't they? He asked himself briefly before focusing on the fight. Man, why do I always have to be the one with a girl? Shikamaru fights with a shadow binding technique, Sakura thought. What could I with? To counteract that. The only thing he could think of that he could do was. Both of them started to form themselves and ran towards their opponent. It's a one-hit, all-or-nothing battle, Sakura thought. I hope it works. She finished her jutsu just as Shikamaru's shadow began to expand into hers. Now, Nimpo, Kaijimane no Jutsu. Shikamaru's shadow was about to capture his when Sakura disappeared with a technique that Shikamaru claimed to be the Kawarimi no Jutsu. The replacement Sakura had decided to choose was Uke. And no. Sakura appeared behind Shikamaru and was about to stab him with her crib, and when she felt his body stop. No way. He thought, his mind racing. How? I can extend two shadows from my body at once, Shikamaru said, turning around and releasing their no. And now she added, making him let go of the cradle and of his right hand. You don't have any weapons. He raised his hand, which was holding a cradle and a shuriken. I really don't want to be the first one here to kill someone, Shikamaru said, switching his hands from left to right. Could you give up? Sakura glared at him. He'd rather have his face filled with metal than give up. But luckily it never came to that. There he stopped the match and declared the winner before anything drastic could happen. Kakashi looked at Sasuke. His hands were clinging to the cursed seal, and it was obvious that it hurt, no matter how hard he tried to hide it. He leaned close to the boy's ear. If you don't show up in the next 2 rounds, he whispered, I'm withdrawing you from the tournament and sealing it. Sasuke turned around. No, he said firmly, even as a new wave of pain swept through him. I'm not retiring. It sounds like he's really giving you a choice. I'm not. That's enough, Kakashi interrupted. I'm sick of your selfishness. 2 more, and if you don't go, you leave the exam. Sasuke kept silent and fixed his gaze on the scoreboard. The next 2 names should include yours. I want to go now, Kiba said, throwing up his arms in frustration. Come on, heavy machine. My name now, my name now. If I don't go soon, all the strong will leave, and I'll stay with the weak. Kibikin, you shouldn't say that, Hinata said with her hands up. Will you offend? Her voice trailed off as she noticed that he wasn't paying attention to her. He was looking at the electronic board with a dazed expression. Hinata turned around and saw that the machine had selected 2 names. Uzumaki Naruto versus Yuga Hinata. Chapter 07. Conflict. Hinata's eyes widened. He looked towards the arena where Uzumaki Naruto was already waiting. He was the blonde kid from the arena that Akamaru had been afraid of. He's so cold, she thought. I didn't need the Yakugan to see that her eyes radiated nothing. No warmth, no emotions, nothing. I'm scared. And Nata, Kiba said uncertainly. If you want to give up, we won't think less of you. No. I will fight. Kiba let his partner pass, wondering if he was right to let Hinata fight. I knew that if I pushed a little more, she would give in and lose the match. Please be okay, Hinata. Naruto stared at his opponent. She was the shy Yuga girl who sat next to him in the first exam 5 days ago. Shit, he thought. I hate fighting with girls. The only girl I've ever fought with who didn't scream as soon as I got close was Tamari. And on second thought, I'm sure there's something wrong with him. God, I hate fighting with girls. As soon as they received the go-ahead, they both got into combat position, and Jimata activated his Yakugan. Hey, she's doing the same style that screw guy did. No kidding. He quickly thought about everything he knew about the Yakugan, which was of no use to him, since he knew absolutely nothing about it. The scrolls only mentioned the technique. They did not provide anything useful, except that the eyes allowed them to see the internal winding system. They didn't provide anything about how to counter it, how to use it against the user, nothing. The Yuga family really did a good job maintaining the secret of the Yakugan. The boy was thoughtful for a moment. Then, finally, he seemed ready to focus on the fight. No one seemed ready to take the first step. They surrounded themselves, always keeping in front of their opponent. Naruto was unwilling to attack a girl first, and Hinata's technique depended on the opponent's first move. Suddenly, they both approached at the same time, with outstretched hands. Hinata's hand barely grazed Naruto's left, but that slight tingling was enough to send waves of electric pain through him. By the arm. He jumped back, waving his hands as if shaking off water. and Nada concentrated on her left hand with her Yakugan, and was surprised to see two different colored chakras on her hand and nowhere else on her body. The two-color chakra was already strange enough without the fact that the darkest one lacked origin and seemed to be sealed in his left hand. He barely touched me and it hurts so much, Naruto thought. It seems that hand-to-hand combat is ruled out. It's a matter of genjutsu or ninjutsu. I don't want to kill her with those techniques. He can see through an illusion with those eyes. I wish I knew more about the Yuga. He prepared for the desired technique, but not before thinking and berating himself for having stupidly tried to converse with the QB the night before. Then he decided to stop yelling at himself. After all, he was in the middle of a fight, and the QB had already given him a good lecture for having talked to him the night before an important mission. Or in the words of the fox, fool. The two fighters have not moved in the last few seconds. Both seemed to be considering their strategies after the first hit. It wasn't about whether Naruto would win or not, it was about how badly he would do. Perhaps she was simply overestimating his ability. Only two things prevented Naruto from getting an instant victory. One was that he was completely unaware of the opponent. Tamari knew that he was afraid that, apparently, he would win and then be counterattacked by an unknown technique. Naruto was not very skilled at thinking quickly. I usually needed a foolproof strategy before I even thought about attacking. It was irrational, but it was there. The second thing was that Naruto just couldn't hit the girls. Or rather, I hated to see them cry. As a child, he had a friendly quarrel with a neighbor, and she cried when he hit her a little harder than he intended. Then his two older brothers gave him an endless lesson about how bad it was to hit a woman. And so, having been negatively affected, or rather traumatized, at such a young age, he had skillfully avoided any contact with the most sophisticated gender. Until now. I can't do that, I could kill her, Naruto thought. Baki-sensei, why did you have to teach me all those forbidden things? Kazakaja-sama, why couldn't you have a scroll with basic techniques? He quickly thought about which technique would work in this situation. He couldn't do his usual running, hitting, pressing, hitting, causing pain, running, backing up. Because he wasn't sure of Ryuga's defense against that, and besides he was deathly afraid of making a girl cry. I think I'll try, Naruto thought nervously. He's a deep thinker, Hinata thought. His eyes went to the lower left corner. He is thinking about how to beat me, but his lower lip keeps sticking out, indicating that there is a flaw in any tactic he tries. Personally, he thought that maybe he should act, but he couldn't. If he suddenly came to life in the middle of her attack, she wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. His eyesight was not very good. His only hope was to counter whatever was thrown at him and wait until he was close enough to fight Hibuken. He did not move, but the chakra of his right hand began to fluctuate. She immediately focused on it while he slowly raised his right hand with the palms towards the ceiling. The chakra was accumulating in his hands. Wait. It was accumulating out of his hands. Outside. He concentrated his gaze on his outer body and was amazed to see chakra. Visible chakra enclosed in a small three-dimensional form. No way, Kakashi thought. That looks like the Rasengan. There's no way. Suddenly, he began to stretch and contort. It contracted for a few moments before reaching the desired shape. A long, thin, sharp chakra buildup that extended from his palm. The chakra inside was swirling rapidly, but the state remained constant. That's not the Rasengan, Kakashi thought. But it looks like him. How did he learn it? He clung to the base. At least for now, I was firm. He had created this jutsu when one day he simply expelled chakra and decided. Mold it into the shape of a sphere. He only got one mound that looked like it was taken out of a plasticine set. But then he discovered that he could stretch and shrink it to any shape he wanted. I had tried to give it a spherical shape, but the chakra just scattered and created a small burst of life. Instead of a sphere. I have to hurry, Naruto thought. I have to finish this before my chakra runs out, so I don't have to rely on the Kumi. He charged. He turned the chakra column as if it were a sword and aimed at the least sensitive areas of the body. She managed to dodge all the blows except one. This one grazed his neck, and, when he touched it, as much as it looked like an ice blue icicle, it burned him. His fighting style is very interesting, he thought. But there is a flaw in his movements. His feet don't move unless his hands stop. So if I try, he aimed his next punch near her right foot, just enough to make her lose her balance, but not to catch her off guard. Immediately after falling backwards, he balanced on his hands and kicked upwards with his left foot. To avoid that kick at such a short distance, Naruto had to jump back, and that action was enough time for Hinata to get back on his feet and to his position. She's good, he thought reluctantly. She's very good. He's put up with the fight for quite a while. But I should probably finish it soon. Damn it. I just wanted him to give up, but now it seems I have to fight fast and dirty. The chakra spear or sword bent and split in half. One half was retracted in his right hand, and the other half was absorbed by the left. On second thought, she wasn't absorbed. He simply circled his hand, so there was now a visible layer of chakra on his left hand. If I had had time to understand what happened in the next few seconds, I would have noticed that he disappeared. She only knew that one instant he was in front of her, and the next she was lying on the floor. He was kneeling next to her, with his right hand around her neck, just above the collarbones, and his left raised, ready to attack. Stop the fight, Ayat said hurriedly. The fight is over. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto stopped his hand mid-attack and stepped back, releasing his collar. And Mata sat up and rubbed his neck. It didn't leave any marks on him, but I could still feel his hand. Naruto took one last look at her before heading back to where the other arena ninjas were stationed. Kakashi watched him as he walked up the stairs step by step. He was different from the frightened child, who ran away without looking back. He couldn't help but wonder what Naruto's life would be like if he had never left. Hinata's team greeted her with sighs of relief. They were glad that he came back with minimal injuries. A few bruises on his neck were nothing compared to what he would have received if he had fought someone like Neji. At least, the Sand Ninja didn't mean to kill her. The moment he met up with the others, his surrogate sister immediately greeted Naruto with 2 blows to each side of the head. What's that for? He asked indignantly. That was for fighting a girl, he said. And the other was for prolonging the fight. It took you 10 minutes to finish a fight, ridiculous. Naruto babbled something about how it wasn't his fault, he had to fight a girl, and that fight's last. Before realizing that Tamari would have used another excuse to hit him in the head. She could never resist using the fact that he couldn't hit girls against her. I have to go now, Sasuke thought. If not, I'll have to leave. Lee was thinking the same thing. It would be great if Sasuke-kun and I could move on to the next round, Lee thought, his eyes full of youthful energy. Since I can't fight Neji or the 2 in the arena, I have to fight Sasuke-kun. If what Neji says about destiny is true, let the board choose us both. The 2 names on the scoreboard read, Yucha Sasuke versus Tsuchiken. Ouch. Lee thought sadly. I wanted to get back at that sound guy, I guess. Tsuchiken was the girl from the sound they found in the forest. It wasn't a big deal. If she could get caught by Hino's Shintensi no Jutsu, then she must have been pretty stupid. Attack with needles, Sasuke thought as another one whizzed harmlessly by. No problem. Aku gives me a lot of practice against them, and their aim and strength are nothing compared to his. Besides, my eyes see them coming from miles away. Kin gritted his teeth. She had no trouble dodging his needles, and the fact that she had to keep moving to avoid his constant bombardment of fists forced her to cut the strings of the bells, so her technique was useless. Suddenly, Sasuke's hands began to form themselves. Then he saw fire before he lost consciousness. Ayat quickly called the fight over before calling the nin's doctors. When Sasuke sat down, Naruto clearly saw the mark on his neck. Orochimaru, Naruto thought. There was no doubt about it. That was the mark I had seen on that man's subordinates. I already had doubts about the purpose of this mission, but I wouldn't question it. It was already too late to question it. That Naruto seems much closer to those to form the arena team than to his own teammates, Shikamaru thought. Something's wrong. And why are they so different ages? What are you muttering, Shikamaru? Hino asked. I'm saying, you need to focus more on how you're going to win the next match. Combat, Shikamaru said. You're the only one of the three who hasn't fought yet. And with the people left here, you'll probably end up in the hospital. That shows how much confidence you have in my abilities, Shikamaru, Ino replied, sticking out his tongue. But deep down, I was also worried. Chapter 08. Completion. All eyes were fixed on the scoreboard that showed non-stop men. By then, there were only 9 people left, which meant that there would be only 4 more games and 1 person who would automatically advance to the next level. Secretly, Lee thought that moving forward automatically would be more painful than death. Finally, he stopped at 2 names. Tamari from the Village of the Sand and Tenten from the Village of the Leaf. Youth power, 10-10. They shouted Lee Gay in unison, successfully embarrassing the girl with the twin buns. They never change, the 2 most conservative members of the one-year rookie team thought. Lee looked across the room to where the arena team was. They weren't doing their part by cheering on their partner. Idiots. But Neji saw something else. The eyes of the 3 boys reflected the same idea: security, confidence, and faith that their partner would be the seller. If they were right, the game was already decided. The combat began quickly. Tenten tried to throw some sharp weapons and failed for the first time in years. Tamari dodged them, using the same taijutsu she used when training with her instructor. A slight movement so fast that it seemed like an illusion. No one her age had been able to see through that the first time she tried. So what would a warm-blooded kunoichi know about a leaf genin? Then Tamari revealed an Osi Morado and told him that once there were 3 present, he would lose. So Tenten decided to use a technique with 2 scrolls. And after observing the faces of her companions, Tamari deduced that it must be her ultimate technique or something. It didn't matter. If this girl tried to win by throwing guns, she would definitely lose. After all, his fan was the best at countering projectiles. And Tenten executed his technique, looking quite striking. But in the end, Tamari's windbreaker blades prevailed, causing the Chinese girl's weapons, there's a Chinese one here, to fall to the ground uselessly and stick her painfully into the tip of the fan. Tamari smiled smugly and threw the girl to the side, dropping her directly into the arms of her idiot companion. Then, she blurted out a sarcastic comment and walked back down the stairs to where she was after being declared the winner. Naruto and Kankuro would probably have understood what she was saying if they weren't so busy making jokes about the fight that was unfolding next. Ouch. Here I would say something like, I'm not going to lose because I'm blonde. It's a war between blondes and brunettes. No, you only hear those things in movies. Besides, that other girl is not a brunette. He has black hair. I thought we were making up movie dialogues. And her hair is like a mix of black and brown. The color of her hair doesn't matter. And we weren't making up movie lines. We were doing dialogues. What's the difference? What is the difference between what? Ah, hi, Tamari. What are you guys talking about? Nothing. Anything important? No. Were you paying attention to my game? Yes. Fine. Kankuro, you're next. Huh. What? Kankuro looked up, and just as Tamari said, his name was on the board along with someone else's, Inuzaka Kiba. I wonder who it is, Kankuro muttered as he walked down the stairs. I wish this match was quick and easy. Why did he have to leave now? Naruto, what were they talking about? Oh, all of a sudden, Kankurum was so glad to be next. After all, Tamari would berate them for not paying attention to the brilliance of their fight. And Nuzaka Kiba was, as his name indicated, a dog boy. He even had a puppy with him. Interesting, Kankuro thought as he put Karasu down. Both have outside help, We're going to defeat this black-suited pig, aren't we, Akamaru? His dog let out an affirmative howl at him. Pig in a black suit. Pig. Kanken felt the pressure rising on him, but he quickly controlled it. It wouldn't do him any good to lose his cool, or to be the only one in the arena he didn't approve of. Match begins. Yoshi. Akamaru? He threw a small object that he claimed to be a soldier's pill at the dog. The small white dog swallowed it, and then turned into a larger animal, resembling a red wolf. It seems that Kiva wants to finish this match quickly, Kurinari thought. Nimpo of Beast Effect. Bunsen Human Beast. Kiva shouted. Akamaru transformed into the human counterpart of his master. Here we go. Jutsu without quadruped. The two charged at Kankerm, breaking pieces of ground along the way. Kangaroo managed to dodge Akamaru with ease, but failed to avoid Akiba. This one crashed into the sand ninja, knocking him painfully to the ground. The second time, Akamaru. Kiba shouted with joy, but the affirmative bark never came. Akamaru? The dog was, precisely, sleeping on the floor. Suddenly, a mechanical hand gripped her wrist. Well, it's my turn. A hand was protruding from the mummified object that his opponent had left on the ground moments earlier. He pulled lightly, and the bandages came loose, revealing what was underneath. Canker. Dogs, especially domestic dogs, are susceptible to any kind of genjutsu, especially sleep, Kangaroo said. And getting up firm under the blankets. And since you've been attacking what you shouldn't, Kiva finally turned to see that he was holding his wrist prisoner. And was surprised to find a mechanical eye staring at him. Suddenly, even more arms wrapped around the body, arms and body. Kiva neck. Then they started to squeeze. Resign, Kanker said. Unless you want to die. Shit, Kiva thought as the mechanical arms tightened even more. I have to think of something or else, She snapped her hand from her wrist. Stop the fighting, Ayat said quickly. Winner, Kangaroo. Kibikin, will he be okay? Inata asked. It's okay, Kurinari said. He just has a broken wrist. From the way he screamed, anyone would have thought that he had broken his nose or something, Shino grumbled. Shino, Kulina chided and, to which Shino did not respond. Perhaps he was a little impatient, although his features do not give it away. There were only 5 people left, and he was the only one on his team who hadn't left. So he was dying of suspense, even if it wasn't the most obvious thing in the world. Why can't that thing pick 2 names at random, instead of displaying them so fast? What a bummer. Shino, it's your turn. Well, we'll fill it with bugs, and call it a freak. In fact, they chose him. His opponent was a man named Tsuhiri Mizumi. He was the other member of Yoroi's team. If his abilities were the same as Yoroi's, there would be no problem. After all, his Kekai insects were consuming his entire chakra. So, even if Mizumi tried to touch him, there would be nothing to drain. Match begins. Immediately, Mizumi threw some punches at him, which he dodged with ease. But as soon as Mizumi was within reach, her body became elastic, and she clung to Shino, wrapping her arms around him, and quickly constricting him. Quit now, or I will have to break your neck, Misundi said. Suddenly, he felt a strange sensation. As if thousands of little feet were climbing up his legs and slowly ascending. He let go of Shino quickly, and was horrified to find that millions of bugs were rapidly advancing towards his head. You won't take them off that easily, Shino said as Mizumi finally lost her balance and fell to the ground. Most of them have probably gotten under your skin. Mizumi wasn't sure if he could utter the words to surrender. The insects were consuming his chakra faster than Yoroi. When Ayat finally had the sense to stop the fight, the insects moved away from Yoroi, leaving behind a terrifying image. He had holes in his skin. Dozens and dozens were spread out over his arms and legs. The Kekai insects had done a thorough job of clearing his chakra. Neji, can you see what's inside that boy? Gay asked. Neji nodded and focused his Yakugan on him. What he saw startled him. He would understand if he summoned them, Meiji said. But this, There are bugs living inside it. What? Lee asked incredulously. The HAREM clan, Gay thought. This is his successor. Lee was tense. Very tense. It was the last match of Chunnin's preliminary examination. I had to participate. I had to do it. By then, only he, the sound technician, and Yamanaka and No remained. I have to be in this, he thought. I have to take revenge on him for embarrassing me in front of Sakura-san. If I don't make it, he swore, I'll bang my head against the wall for 100 times. And then I'll do 500 laps around Konoha. The next match was between Kinuta Dosu and Yamanaka and No. It took place after an incident in which they had to restrain a boy with bull hair from crashing his head into the wall. Dosu smiled confidently. This girl thought she could prevent her attacks with earplugs. He was wrong. And she was not kneeling on the floor, holding her ears in pain. His attack had been unexpected and had completely knocked her off balance. She was on her knees now, but it didn't look like she was. It was like I was on my side against a wall or something. And not to mention what was wrong with his eyes. Dosu seemed to have hundreds of clones behind him. Suddenly, everyone pounced on her, and in that split second, she finally saw the real Dosu. Then his palm came into contact with her chin, and the force threw her against the wall. Winner, Tosu. Sandai observed me to the Genin group before him this year. All of them were exceptional, and almost half of them were novices. Impressive. His gaze rested briefly on Uzumaki Naruto. The boy was standing in the last row, chatting with another Genin, San, the one with a pumpkin on his back. He would have liked to ask the boy a lot of questions. Why did you leave? What happened when you left? Where did you go? Who did you meet with? But he found that he simply couldn't. It was probably his negligence in applying the rule of consider him a hero that prompted the boy to run away. Now I'd like to start explaining the main test to you, he said out loud, purposely avoiding eye contact with the Exoya. And he was almost certain that Naruto was ignoring him for some reason. It will take place within a month. During this month, the shinobi leaders should be informed and gathered for the selection. Of course, they will also take advantage of this time to rest and improve their bodies. Get it over with now, Gigi, Kankuro thought impatiently. Old people are always talkative. I would like to say goodbye to you now, the Sandame began. Yes. But something has to be done first. No. There are pieces of paper in the box Anko is holding, Sandame said. Please, take one. Each one took out a piece of paper as he turned the box. They were then asked to repeat the numbers on the paper. They have just taken out the numbers for the organization of the matches of the final, he said. Is that why we draw them? Asked the group of Leaf Jennings and Tamari. The matchups for the final are, Ibiki said, first matchup. Uzumaki Naruto and Yuganei. The second confrontation. Kinuta Dosu and Rogel. The third confrontation. Kankuro and Aburamashino. The fourth confrontation. Timar and Jinara Shikamaru. The fifth confrontation. Gara and Uchisasuke. Then the boy Nara asked a question about the terms for passing the exams before they were, in Kankuru's words, finally dismissed. The four of the arena joined together and quickly took off. Kazakaja-sama won't like it if your match with Sasuke is your last, Naruto muttered to Gahara. I don't care what he thinks, Gahara murmured. True. You only care about what I think. If Luke's killed, Naruto would be poisoned, burned, his body parts ripped off by 5 angry horses in 5 directions, and buried 12 feet underground. Tamari saw the blonde joking with her younger brother. Uzumaki Naruto, the supreme fool, the king of idiots, and the only one who jokes with Gahara on a daily basis. On second thought, I was the only one joking with Gahara. Anyway, Naruto was saying, I found this great place in the forest. It's right next to a river, so I'll train there if someone looks for me. For what? Tamari asked. Not that you need it. Speed and endurance. The three of them almost collided. Naruto was the fastest genin in the arena and once turned his Nagakure around 50 times without getting disheveled. If I had to train, it should be about strength, not speed or endurance. But first, let's have something to eat, Naruto said, raw. No, Tamari shouted, hitting him hard on the head with the tip of her fan. You. How disgusting. Fat noodles. You haven't had anything but ramen since you got here. I haven't had ramen in the last 5 days. Fine. Get that shit out of your mind. Tamari grabbed the collar of Naruto's shirt and started dragging him to the nearest udon booth, while Kankuro and Gaara followed. In the end, they ended up eating at a chicken curry place, but eating at a chicken curry place has little to do with this story. So let's move on, shall we? It was a bright and early Saturday morning. The birds were singing happily, and Konoha was starting to come to life. Tamari hated him. The sun was shining too bright, the birds were making too much noise, and the people were making even more noise than the damn birds. No, he's not a pessimist. He just loves to sleep and hates mornings. He turned around and wrapped himself even more in the cocoon of blankets. Kankuro and Naruto insisted that the air conditioning be turned up to full. Mainly because at home, they never had the opportunity to get cold. When he turned around, he found a note. It said, training. I'll be back around 5. Naruto? Fart. I won't eat ramen for lunch, if that's what you're worried about. Tamari let out a giggle and ran her fingers through her hair. How predictable. The place Naruto found was definitely an ideal place to start. To train. The river stretched beyond what the eye could see and was not very deep. I could run through the water all day. Chakra control, speed and endurance all rolled into one. He was about to start when he felt that someone was watching him. He threw a crib and in the direction of that person. Don't be so angry, Naruto-san. It was Kurosaki. They weren't supposed to regroup. What are you doing here? Kazakage-sama has new orders for you, Kurosaki said, tossing the crib he had thrown at her, this time with a piece of paper attached. Should I inform everyone else? Naruto asked. I said I had new orders for you, she replied, getting up to leave. I didn't say they were for anyone else. Naruto frowned as the sand ninja disappeared into the trees. How strange. He looked at the paper. I only had 3 simple words. Summon a Kyumi. Chapter 09. Terms of use. After reading the note, Naruto came to 2 conclusions. Kazakage-sama had lost his mind, or Kurosaki was playing a prank on him. He decided on the first one. It was more likely that the Snake Man of the Sound had poisoned his mind. In fact, it was the Snake Man who orchestrated the entire attack. It was almost as if Kazekage Samek was just a puppet. No, he wasn't that stupid. Kazakage-sama could be fooled by his ambitions, but he was not a fool. At least that's what Naruto thought. You know, Kankuro said, if you had taken the Chun exams in the past year, you would have made it through without any problems. It's too late now. Not so, Tamari replied. No, it's not like that. Secretly, he had been surprised and a little disappointed to learn about the Konoha invasion. To begin with, I had nothing against this village. Besides, even if I didn't want to admit it, I wanted to be Chunin. I wish it had been a year later. Naruto racked his brains looking for a way to summon a 9-tailed fox. The logical thing, of course, would be to ask the Kyuubi. But the last time he asked her for help learning an invocation, he had told her to discover it himself. Then she had to wait for a week, with her pinky writhing uncontrollably, before the Kyuubi told her something. So, after a few hours of reflection while running up and down the river, he finally came to the conclusion that he could not summon a Yoma without additional help. Summoning a demon was a dark art, and any dark art in the shinobi world had to be developed or learned directly. Hey, Baka Kitsune. Wake up! What do you want, you stupid brat? I need to learn how to summon a 9-tails. Don't mess with me, little dwarf, Kirumi growled. No. I have to learn it in a month. What the fuck for, Gaki? Chunin selection exam. And don't call me that. Where it says in the rulebook that you need to know how to summon a demon for a Chunin exam, Baka. Kazakage-sama wants me to learn it so he can use it later. Damn it, you idiot. It's gonna take you a hell of a long time to learn the damn rules. Are there any rules for summoning demons? Go back to that pile of garbage you call a hotel, sleep well tonight, and I'll start teaching you tomorrow. Okay, apostrophe point. That means there will be no more training for the rest of the day. What? Why aren't you training? Tamari asked, surprised to see Naruto walk in the door. Didn't you say I'd be back around 5? Kazakage-sama wants me to learn how to summon a demon fox again. 9 tails, Naruto said. Kyuubi said he would teach me starting tomorrow, but that means I can't train for the rest of the day. The two almost choked on their coconut-flavored crushed ice. Summon a Kyuubi? Tamari asked. Why is that? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Helping with the attack is my best bet, he said truthfully. It never occurred to him to question why the Kazekage wanted him to learn how to summon the Kyuubi. It wasn't his job to question orders. Does Baki know? Kankuro asked, just as Baki entered the room. I know Kazakage-sama wants me to learn how to summon a Kyuubi Yoma in time for the attack, Naruto said. Baki was a little surprised by the Kazakage's request. I didn't know that in advance. Because he suddenly wanted Naruto to learn how to summon. Kazakage-sama, you are a cruel man, Baki thought. You really hate the Sandai Myokai of the Leaf with a passion, don't you? Using that kind of emotional attack. Baki-sensei, Naruto was saying, why do you think Kazakage-sama wants me to learn that? Baka, Baki said. Think about it. Everything is designed to inflict pain on the Okage. During the attack, both will be isolated from the rest of the fight. The Sandaime Okage won't be able to help the Leaf Ninjas while they're fighting the Kyuubi you supposedly summoned. Just like he couldn't help with the Kyubilo Yuma from 13 years ago. And since you were the one who summoned him, it would cause even more pain, since he couldn't protect you from the villagers 8 years ago. Naruto turned his gaze to the window. I had long since learned the difference between the Hunter Ninja and the Zambu. But still, I hadn't thought about the Sandai Myokai again until now. Baki was watching his student closely. Even after keeping an eye on him for all these years, he was still an enigma to him. Naruto was not violent or bloodthirsty by nature. I used to experience a bit of both when I was on a mission, but otherwise it was pretty peaceful. In fact, often, his peacefulness was so high that it warranted some concern. But he always recovered from those phases quite quickly. Hey, Tamari, look, Naruto said suddenly. Your opponent is going to that barbecue again with the rest of his team. Nara? Tamari asked, going over to the window and taking a look. Suddenly, a question popped into his head. Naruto, do you know Nara? Naruto was silent for a moment. We were jumping buddies, he finally said. Me, him, the fat guy, and the dog guy. Although I'm almost sure he doesn't remember, he added quickly. It could have been his imagination, but it seemed that whenever Naruto talked about his past, he always had a nostalgic look in his eyes. It must have been his imagination. Naruto had never expressed any affection towards the Leaf Village. And I wouldn't do it now, especially in the middle of such an important mission. Hey, start teaching him, Naruto said to the fox, ignoring the stupid annoying cow comments. That came naturally out of the fox's dirty mouth. Well, the first thing you should know is that when summoning a Yuma of any kind, it is permanent. That is, he will not leave for any reason unless he dies. The contract between the invoker and the invoked is binding. So don't practice summoning just for fun. So, how were you summoned? The fox emitted a sound between a snort and a laugh, or, in other words, a snap. The asshole who summoned me couldn't control me. That's another thing, don't invoke things you can't control. That's not a demonstration of power, it's just stupid. A Kyuubi is one of the most bloodthirsty tribes of Janmas that exist. If you lose control over them, they will go crazy, as happened to me 13 years ago. Naruto thought, I never thought there could be rules for summoning demons. Well, yes there are, so shut up, he said. Before we continue, you can't practice summoning, so keep this in mind. To summon one, swap the first, second, third, and last seal in the normal Kitsune summon. Oh, and use my chakra when invoking. What? Why is that? Do you want to go out in the middle of the night to pick lichens at the height of the full moon? No apostrophe point. Do you want to find a moonstone and carve it in the shape of a fox? No apostrophe point. Do you want to collect the toenails of a rabbit that has been dead for exactly 99 hours? No. Fine. Then do as I tell you and use my chakra to invoke. It's like one QB calling another. That's how it works. Ah, I see. But what about that lichen? Summoning a demon is not easy, Kyuzo. So I can't practice the invocation. No apostrophe point. Naruto sighed. I guess I have to get back to training. He got up and sat down again immediately. I felt the left leg as the feeling that remains after the foot goes numb. It would probably last for a while too. He tried to move his fingers. Well, at least I still had sensitivity. Judging by that, it would probably only take one night to heal. It would have been a dark and desolate night if not for the bright full moon that illuminated the streets of the village. At that time of night, there were very few people awake. Gaara was one of them. It always was. The shukaku inside him never allowed him to sleep more than a few seconds. Why did Naruto, whose demonic strength was 10 times greater, allow him to sleep? Why could he talk to his demon at will? While he was trapped in Shukaku's shrill, high-pitched voice, why was Naruto so lucky? What's so special about the Naruto seal? Why is that? Shukaku became agitated. Gaara closed her eyes, careful not to fall asleep. No. I wouldn't be jealous. Naruto was his friend, his best friend. I was the only person who understood him. No, I wouldn't be. I'm sure you have me, you don't sleep. Gaara opened her eyes and then turned her gaze to the intruder. He was one of the shinobi from Otagakura, is that right? The man commented that he wanted to fight with Sasuke-kun. Gaara resisted the urge to let out a sardonic laugh. The only one who would fight against the Uchiha would be him, only him. He would be the last person Uchiha Sasuke would fight because he would destroy him. That Otonin, Kinuta Dosu. He's an idiot. He uncovered his pumpkin without moving, letting the sand come out in pieces. The nin of the sound does not notice and just approaches. What an asshole. He gets excited during the full moon, Gaara finally says out loud, surprising the sound ninja. Moments later, the roof would be marked with 3 cuts. In the middle of those 3 wounds was the body of Kinuta Dosu, who, senselessly, challenged Gaara from the arena. Did you kill a leaf jounin? To hell with that. Did you kill the 3rd examiner? It was inevitable, Baki told his furious student. He listened to the conversation between Kabuto and me. That's why you don't usually talk about top-secret war plans in the middle of the night, in the middle of a place where anyone can hear you. Baki shot Naruto a withering look that returned him to his place. How is the invocation going? He asked. It's going well, Naruto replied. The QB says that I cannot practice it, because if I do, whatever I invoke will not disappear. Baki nodded. It made sense, the invocation between normal and Juna's animals inevitably had differences. What is the success rate? 1.75, I would say. Alone. Baki sighed. I guess it wouldn't be a total success if Naruto didn't even practice. Either way, even if you manage to summon